There are artists who sing, and then there are artists who speak to the soul. And in the late 90s, when R&B was standing at the crossroads of tradition and transformation, one man emerged like a storm wrapped in velvet. Mysterious, magnetic, and unflinchingly raw. His name was Michael Eugene Archer, but the world came to know him as D'Angelo, a name whispered in reverence, sung in adoration, and remembered as a symbol of soul reborn. His story isn't just about music, it's about the weight of genius, the price of vulnerability, and the power of resurrection. Michael Eugene Archer was born on February 11, 1974, in Richmond, Virginia, a city steeped in history, struggle, and spirit. He was raised in a Pentecostal household, the kind where the church wasn't just a place of worship, but a rhythm of life. His father, a preacher, and his mother, a deeply spiritual woman, filled the house with gospel music, sermons, and the sound of devotion. It was there that young Michael learned the language of emotion, the kind that doesn't come from textbooks, but from the trembling hands of a choir, from voices lifted in faith, from the ache of human longing. From an early age, music became his prayer. He played piano at church, where every note was a conversation with something divine. He studied the harmonies of gospel greats and soaked in the discipline of performance that church life demanded. But even as he played the organ for Sunday services, his ear wandered toward Marvin Gaye, Prince, Curtis Mayfield, Al Green, artists who turned pain into poetry and vulnerability into rhythm. In those moments, Michael Archer began to shape his own sound, one that would one day redefine what soul could be. By his teenage years, he had already become something of a prodigy. He was quiet, introspective, and fiercely creative. Music wasn't just an outlet, it was his identity. He wrote songs obsessively, experimenting with structure, tone, and honesty. There was something old about him even then, an ancient quality, as if he had inherited the spirits of the musicians who came before him. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing truth. And when truth meets talent, something timeless is born. That truth began to take form in the early 90s when Archer began performing locally, catching the attention of producers and artists who recognized his raw, undefinable energy. He wasn't polished in the traditional sense, he was authentic. In an industry obsessed with shine, he was substance. That difference would become both his blessing and his burden. When he signed with EMI Records in the mid-1990s, he took the stage name D'Angelo, a name that felt spiritual, like something beyond human. He wasn't just stepping into music, he was stepping into legacy. And in 1995, with his debut album Brown Sugar, he didn't just enter the conversation, he changed it. Brown Sugar was more than an album, it was an awakening. A smoky, sensual, deeply musical masterpiece that introduced the world to the future of soul. D'Angelo's voice, honeyed, gritty, and seductive, carried the weight of old-school R&B with the freshness of something revolutionary. The title track, Brown Sugar, dripped with funk and jazz, fusing the influence of Stevie Wonder with the groove of Jay Dilla. Songs like Lady, Cruisin', and Alright brought back a kind of intimacy that had been missing from mainstream R&B. But beyond the production and the vocals, what made Brown Sugar unforgettable was its honesty. D'Angelo sang about love and lust, but also about connection and identity. He wasn't trying to make hits, he was trying to make you feel, and people felt it. Critics called it the rebirth of neo-soul, though D'Angelo never set out to create a genre. He was simply doing what came naturally, making music that was real. Suddenly, this quiet, introspective artist from Virginia was being hailed as the savior of soul. He was placed alongside Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, and Maxwell, the pioneers of a movement that valued artistry over image. But for D'Angelo, fame came with a shadow. He didn't crave the spotlight, he craved creation. The industry, however, wanted more appearances, more singles, more of everything that fame demands and art resists. He retreated into the studio, searching for something purer, something deeper. And after years of silence, that search gave birth to one of the greatest R&B albums ever recorded, Voodoo. When Voodoo dropped in 2000, it didn't just make waves, it rewrote the map. It was darker, grittier, and infinitely more complex than Brown Sugar. It was a spiritual journey wrapped in rhythm, an exploration of faith, desire, pain, and freedom. Produced with the help of Questlove and the Soulquarians, the album pulsed with live instrumentation and raw emotion. It wasn't polished, it was alive. Tracks like Devil's Pie, Send It On, and One Mo Gin blurred the line between sacred and sensual. But it was untitled, How Does It Feel? That froze the world in its tracks. The song wasn't just music, it was an experience. A slow-burning confession that stripped away everything but honesty. And then came the video, that now iconic, minimalist clip of D'Angelo standing shirtless, vulnerable, and human, singing directly to the camera. It was intimate, it was powerful, and it changed his life forever. Overnight, D'Angelo became a sex symbol, something he never wanted to be. The video that was meant to celebrate vulnerability became a cage. Suddenly, his artistry was overshadowed by image. The world wasn't talking about his sound anymore. They were talking about his body. The pressure mounted. The expectations grew unbearable. The man who wanted to be known for his soul became trapped by the surface. The years that followed were dark. Fame turned heavy. The spotlight, once flattering, became blinding. D'Angelo began to withdraw, struggling under the weight of fame, artistic expectation, and personal demons. He disappeared from the public eye. No tours, no interviews, no new music. Fans wondered if he was gone for good. What they didn't know was that he was fighting a war within himself, one that nearly consumed him. Those years in the wilderness were marked by silence and struggle. D'Angelo wrestled with addiction, isolation, and the haunting question that faces every artist who's been to the top. Who am I without the applause? But through it all, the music never left him. Even in his darkest hours, he was still writing, still searching, still listening for that voice that had once guided him from Richmond's church pews to the global stage. Then, after nearly 15 years of silence, something miraculous happened. In 2014, without warning or fanfare, D'Angelo returned with Black Messiah, an album that proved not only that he was back, but that he had evolved into something even more profound. Black Messiah wasn't about perfection, it was about power. It was political, personal, and unapologetically raw. In a time of social upheaval, his voice felt like prophecy. Songs like The Charade, Until It's Done, Tutu addressed race, justice, and the collective pain of Black America, while tracks like Sugar Daddy and Betray My Heart reminded listeners that his groove still ran deep. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a resurrection. D'Angelo had faced his demons, and instead of letting them break him, he turned them into art. The title Black Messiah wasn't about ego, it was about empowerment. In his words, Black Messiah is not one man. It's a feeling that, collectively, we can all be the Messiah. It was the perfect reflection of his growth, from a gifted artist searching for validation to a visionary using his platform to inspire change. The album earned universal acclaim and reminded the world why D'Angelo was never just another R&B singer. He was a movement. Today, Michael Eugene Archer remains a man of mystery, still deliberate, still quiet, still selective with his art. But that mystery is part of his magic. He doesn't flood the world with content, he gives it moments. When D'Angelo speaks, people listen. When he plays, people feel. His music doesn't chase trends, it transcends them. Because at his core, D'Angelo has always been about essence, not excess. And that's why his legacy endures. He's not just the father of neo-soul or the man behind voodoo. He's an artist who dared to be real in an era obsessed with image. He's proof that you can lose everything: fame, comfort, certainty, and still find your way back through art. His journey reminds us that the most beautiful music often comes from brokenness, and that silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it means healing. There's something sacred about D'Angelo's story. It's a reminder that talent is only half the story. The other half is truth. He didn't rise through spectacle. He rose through sincerity. He didn't stay relevant through trends. He stayed timeless through authenticity. Every note he's ever sung carries the echo of where he came from. The church, the struggle, the yearning to connect. Michael Eugene Archer isn't just D'Angelo, the R&B icon. He's the preacher's son who turned confession into melody. The man who lost himself in fame only to find himself again in faith and music. The artist who taught a generation that soul is more than a sound. It's a way of being. His voice is still that same blend of pain and peace, of love and longing. His chords still shimmer with the spirit of those who came before, Donnie, Marvin, Stevie, yet remain unmistakably his own. And his silence, when it comes, speaks volumes. Because true artists don't need to explain themselves. Their art says it all. D'Angelo once said that music saved his life, and maybe that's why it continues to save others. Through every note, every whisper, every raw confession, he reminds us that we're not alone in our searching. That even in the chaos, there's still harmony to be found. That the soul, once awakened, never really sleeps. So here's to Michael Eugene Archer, the man who disappeared when the world wanted more, only to return when it needed truth. The man who turned his struggle into sound and his silence into strength. The man who reminded us that sometimes the bravest thing an artist can do is feel everything. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of D'Angelo, an artist whose music isn't just heard, but felt. If his story moved you, if it reminded you of the power of vulnerability and the beauty of staying true to yourself, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves real music, and subscribe for more tributes like this. Because in every generation, there are a few artists who don't just sing about life, they live it. And D'Angelo, the soul of a generation, is one of them.